here's the point I want to make relative to him. And I like to call this part of the show, Greeny explains something about basketball to Jalen. and this is my fundamental list for the day. And it is the 5 biggest NBA draft misses on big men during the Steph Curry era. Now, I understand that that is a pretty limited group. But what we're basically talking about is Steph Curry is a man who will be remembered for a very long time as having changed the game of basketball, fundamentally changed the way the game is played, the way it's thought, and the way it's executed in a variety of ways. And some teams, I think, have caught up to that in their execution and in their team building, and others are still just taking big guys because they're big guys. So I got 5 examples of big mistakes that were made on those, and at number 5 is Jalil Okafor. In 2015, he went number 3 overall. Right behind him went Kristaps Porzingis. Among others who went in that draft were Devin Booker, who, according to the people in Phoenix, is going to be Kobe 2.0. And whether that's unrealistic or not, my point is you could take a guy like Porzingis, you could take a guy like Booker, but they took the classic big in Jalil Okafor, and he's at number 5. It might have been a little higher had there been better players taken after him, if you will, and that we're going to get to that on the list. But that clearly, he's not even in Philadelphia anymore. We saw the mistake that was.
I think he still has what it takes to be a modest big man in the league. Being drafted by Philly, initially he showed promise. Then once the process kicked in, they literally just buried him. I didn't appreciate, as a fan of the game and as a former player, how that was done. It seemed personal. He got traded to the Nets. He's still trying to find his way. But I understand your point, but I never saw him as a terrific athlete. He wasn't much of a defender. And so he would fall into the category of somebody that needed a lot of post-ups. I don't see Ayton as that type of player.
Okay, fair enough. But my point is teams are still taking these classic bigs. At number 4, 2013 was Alex Len. He went number 5 to the Phoenix Suns, and anyone who watched him in college, you could see that's exactly what he was. This guy was drafted exclusively because he was as big as he is. C.J. McCollum went after him in that draft. The Greek Freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo, went after him in that draft. So you're talking about a guy, again, another example of someone who was drafted just because he looked the part circa 1990, not 2018.
NBA is a big man's game. For example, if you were at the park and Kevin Durant was standing there and Steph Curry was standing there, you would pick Kevin Durant on your team because you think, in theory, they have the same skills, but one is taller.
Right.
So Alex Len will get the benefit of the doubt in that instance, but he wasn't necessarily a dominant college player. It could have been considered a reach when they took him, and now he's a player that actually isn't on their roster anymore that fast.
Let me run through a couple of others because now this is going to take a turn. At number 3 is Enes Kanter, and it's not as though he has not had a productive NBA career. He has. He is a good NBA player. But in the same draft that Kanter went number 3 overall, Klay Thompson got drafted, Kawhi Leonard got drafted. So teams, and Kawhi Leonard was on a team with Steve Fisher as the coach that was really good in college. He didn't surprise the world. Maybe we didn't see this coming, but everyone was well aware of him. Klay Thompson's father was the number 1 pick in the draft once upon a time, and teams still took the 7-footer instead of taking these players.
Actually, I don't think Kanter belongs on this list because he's a walking double-double. He's going to get you 15 points. He's going to get you 10 to 12 rebounds. He's a really productive player. And how about this for the University of Kentucky? He never played for them.
No, I get it.
It still went in the top 5 of the NBA draft.
He's a good player, but my point, these are just about mistakes people made on guys because they were big instead of taking Klay Thompson or Kawhi Leonard. How about in 2010, Ekpe Udoh was drafted number 6 overall. Gordon Hayward went in that draft. Paul George went in that draft. Ekpe Udoh has played, what did you say, on 5 different teams now in his NBA career, averaging 4 points and 3 rebounds. As a perfect example, he actually, after getting drafted in the NBA, played, then went over to Europe, then came back and is playing again. I'm not trying to dismiss these people and their accomplishments and what they're trying to do. I'm trying to point out that teams are taking these guys because they are 7 feet tall. And finally, that brings us to number 1, which is in 2009, the number 2 pick in the draft was Hasheem Thabeet. Remember him?
I do.
Do you know who else went in that draft?
Who's that?
Number 3 in that draft, 1 pick behind him was James Harden. 5 picks behind him was Steph Curry. After tonight, James Harden and Steph Curry will have combined to win 3 MVP awards during their career. Curry is a transformational player. Harden is a transformational player, and they took Hasheem Thabeet because he's 7 feet tall.
Ekpe Udoh's my man, 50 grand. Hasheem Thabeet was a bust. But you can look back at any draft and have the benefit of hindsight,
right,
and talk about who should not have gone in front of certain players.
Right, and most of the ones who were wrong were 7 feet tall. And that is the point of the fundamental
How
list.
about this? How about the year Steph Curry got drafted? There were a couple of guards taken in front of him. Johnny Flynn and Ricky Rubio went in front of him also.
Correct, and Harden. And that isn't the reason that they got drafted. Mistakes get made all the time. But stop taking the 7-footer just because he's 7 feet tall.